Hey YouTubers, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick response video in the next album review thread. This one came up by the one and only Mr. Dylan Records. And of course, hence that name, it's no surprise what album he chose, which he kind of said himself. And he chose this one here, which is Blonde on Blonde by Bob Dylan. And of course, definitely a classic album, definitely a good choice, and as always, here's my 2 cents on it. As far as the different copies I have, well, I'll start with this. I have the CD. It's kind of a recent issue CD. I have this copy, which is a sealed copy, which is nice. C2S 841 release. And this is really nice. This is one I've shown before because I got this for $5 at a garage sale. So a really nice find there. You can see the original price on there was $6.92. So you know how long ago that must have been. And then I also have this copy, which is a C2L41 release. I don't know the exact year, but this is one I got off eBay a while ago. And this is the Claudine cover there. So again, very nice find. And that's what I use as my listening copy. Now, I know one of the questions, let me jump into it before I get into the rest, otherwise I'll forget. But you asked about, what format do you tend to like to listen to this song? Typically, considering that this is a double LP, and usually when I listen to Bob Dylan, I'm typically more in a, kind of just throw on, chill back, and let go type mode. So in that regard, I do like the CD in the sense that you could put it on and listen to basically both LPs without having to go in and change or anything like that. But I probably kind of flip-flop between both. But for the most part, I tend to listen to this album most in my car, and I don't know why it happens that way. So I guess in that regard, I tend to play the CD a little bit more. Or what's in my iPod, which is in my car, so. But, it just always depends on the day or whatever. As far as some of the other basic topics we've been covering with each album, the cover art, I was going to say another very classic cover, very recognizable, and, more than makes its mark, which makes it a good cover, like I said about Sgt. Pepper's and Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. But, like, right before I started shooting this video, I started kind of thinking, too, that recognizable nature doesn't necessarily make an album cover a great cover. Because when you think about it, when albums are as epic as Dark Side of the Moon or Blonde on Blonde or Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, whatever they put on that cover would be a recognizable cover. So I had to kind of think about that, to think the popularity of an album can make any cover popular and easily recognizable. But does that mean it's necessarily a good cover, So I'm going to try to use those glasses, if you will, as we start doing more of these reviews moving forward, starting with Blonde on Blonde. The biggest thing I've always liked about Blonde on Blonde is I always like the simple covers of just like a face shot, number one, Sometimes just that plain, simple thing can be very, very, very powerful. I do love kind of the little haze, the out of focus touch that's on the picture. I think that definitely adds something to it. It adds some mystique to Bob. And then also kind of this sandish earth tone color, which is a lot more on this release than on that one, as you can see. This was a little darker. But it's just something about that earthy tone that's so even throughout the entire cover. It's something about that I like. It adds like some type of grit or pull to it. And again, I'm just throwing out words based on how I feel. I don't necessarily know how to describe it. So as far as album covers go, I mean, I definitely have to give it a solid 8. Just because it's a very cool cover, very, very cool cover. I think it captures Bob, and it captures the time as well, the time period. So, as far as the music goes, Let me look at the CDs or the track listing there. So, as far as the track listing goes, one of the things that I think is really impressive about this album, and it may kind of touch on another question that you were asking about, how do you feel about when Bob went electric, when he was with that band, I forgot. But I think one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite Dylan albums is because of the diversity that Bob showed on this album. And what I mean by that is, like, when I look at songs such as, Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat and Pledging My Times, those are very, very much blues-based songs. I mean, it's just like he's completely playing the blues in those songs. But then if you go to a song like Visions of Johanna, which happens to be my favorite song on the album, something about that song, in somewhere underneath, there's a very, very funky groove that's, I wouldn't say hidden in that song, but it's not quite on the surface and right out in front of you. But whenever I hear that song, that's the first thing I think is, this is funk. I'm listening to something funky. It's funk. And then if you go to a song like, let's see, what else? Oh, most likely you go your way and I'll go mine. Again, when you listen to that bass line and the groove inside of that song, that totally and completely is a psychedelic song, without question. Bob's not playing this distorted guitar and all this feedback and everything, but if you just listen to the basic groove of that song, it is totally a psychedelic song. And the same thing with Temporary Like Achilles. That's a gospel song that I've heard a number of times before. Absolutely Sweet Marie, which is, very much like a Beatles pop song to me. And, what else? Oh, Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. That sounds just like a typical 60s Chuck Berry type of, country rock song, or just kind of what Chuck Berry was doing at the time. So, when I sit back and think about great Dylan records, I sit back and look at that and go, man, he had blues in there, he had funk in there, he had psychedelic stuff in there, he had gospel stuff in there, he had rock stuff in there, folk. It's like he was just really, really showing his skill without necessarily letting you know that he was showing all of his skills. He was just taking music from so many different areas. And I just think that's one of the things that makes this such a powerful Dylan album to me. So as far as the music goes, that's kind of my feelings on that. How does it compare to others? I don't know. How do you even try to compare Dylan to... There's nobody else like Dylan. There's one, and there'll only be one. In terms of the type of artist that he comes off as, in terms of uniqueness, no one ever being able to duplicate him, such creativity over a long period of time, the first person that comes to mind that I compare him to on kind of those terms would be Neil Young. Just so unique, has such a thing that seems so simple, yet people just can't duplicate it. And Neil Young is the other artist that comes to mind that I would kind of compare, not through the way their music sounds, but all the other stuff I just mentioned. And what was the last thing? Oh, is this a must-have in your collection? And absolutely, of course it is. Everyone should have this album in your collection. So I'm pretty sure there's something on here that everyone, for the most part, will end up liking. And I think it's just kind of like in the movie High Fidelity, Jack Black. What? You don't have it? Don't tell anybody you don't own fucking Blonde on Blonde. That's about as true as it gets. You never want to tell anybody you do not own this album. It's an absolute must-have. So it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. So anyway, that's my take on Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde. Another good one. And that's about 3 or 4 deep that we're into this. So I'm going to sit down here in a few minutes and think of an album that I want to put into this thread. And we'll kind of go from there. Oh, and by the way, the album that's playing, I didn't mention that. I'm listening to Bob Dylan 61, Highway 61 Revisited, so that's what's playing in the background. So anyway, thanks as always, YouTubers, and I will talk to you soon.